Welcome to Positive Philter with your host, Philip Wilkerson, a podcast that focuses on friends, family, health, and career with a little self-help along the way. Please join me in this journey for self-improvement, and I hope what I have to share will make you a better person, thus making the world a better place. I hope you enjoy the show. Hello, Positive Philter listeners. It's Philip Wilkerson back with another episode of Positive Philter. I'm joined by a special guest. Well, everyone is a special guest because they take their time to join me on my show. But actually, this good brother is someone I actually look up to. The LinkedIn locksmith, good fraternity brother, someone that is a master connector and networker. You know, I've seen this in person, how he takes command of a room and really introduces himself and builds relationships. And that's something I've tried to do and emulate. And so I wanted to have him on the podcast to talk about his strategies on building relationships, collaborative relationships, and just his insights on just everything, LinkedIn, all that. So without further ado, I want to introduce a good friend of mine, Rob YB Youngblood, to the show. Actually, brother Rob YB Youngblood to the show. Welcome.
I appreciate you, Philip, man. I really do, man. And I know we're on your show, but we keep it informal in the frat, unless we don't have a relationship, right? So we hit them with the brother. I had to learn that. I've been in the frat going on 24 years, and I had to realize that, as you get to know people, you don't always have to put that brother on there. But for the brothers who don't know me, I'm brother Rob YB Youngblood, native of the Bronx, New York. Grew up in a single-parent home. My father was actually murdered when I was 2, and I share that wherever I go because I want people to understand that your adversity is actually an asset, and I'm looking forward to sharing a little bit of insight as it pertains to collaboration, creating currency. So thank you for having me on your show.
Well, one thing, you build relationships. You're really skilled. You dive in. You talk about gifts and diving into your gifts and blessings. You even say peace and blessings when you meet people.
Yeah.
I was wondering, and this is just me, we're having an informal conversation. Were you always good at meeting new people? Were you that kid in class that talked to everybody in class? Was that just something that was innate, just being able to talk to new people and meet people?
It's funny that you brought that up. I was having a conversation with my daughters recently. And even though I'm gregarious, I like to go out and meet people in a controlled environment. I wasn't always confident in my ability to talk to complete strangers. Yes, I grew up going to public school, and I transitioned to Catholic school, and on every one of my report cards, Philip, it would say Rob is a very conscientious student, very, very intelligent, but he just talks too much. And had I known then what I know now, I would have told my teacher, listen, I'm about to get paid for speaking. Stop sweating me. Yes. But yeah, I was always the person that was talking. I loved to sing growing up. I would use that as a way to attract the ladies and kind of to solidify my brand. But I had a deficiency. I remember when I got started in business after I graduated from college in 2004, I got started in the Amway business. I was in direct sales. And so being able to just approach somebody and meet them for the purpose of having a business conversation was tough for me. But as I look forward or look back, or, if you look forward back, 2024, I'm a master at it. Why? Because I had to acknowledge my deficiency, acknowledge my gap. I had to find mentors and coaches who could help me. And then I had to put what I was being taught into practice. And now, it comes easy for me. I sometimes I have a little bit of a challenge sometimes when it's like, okay, do I want to talk to this person? But I learned a valuable lesson that we have literally 3 seconds to make a powerful decision. And oftentimes when we have that pause where fear creeps in, that's the time to do it, because on the other side of that is a blessing. And so, yeah, man, I've been in this zone for several years, but I've always focused on improvement, specifically when it comes to communication, leadership, and networking.
I mean, like I said, I witnessed it multiple times. I've seen it in person, just how we sit at a table and you introduce yourself, with the confidence and shoulders up and make a very big statement. Even most recently, we were at a Chambers event and they asked us to do 1 minute. And I think that kind of aligns with that. We only had 3 seconds, but we only had 1 minute to really introduce ourselves to a room, and how you speak with confidence was something amazing. When you recognize that deficiency, what what was that moment where you're like, dang, I need to get better at, with this Amway, my first professional job, communicating? And what were some of the resources that you used to address that deficiency?
Oh yeah. So you're familiar with this first one, and that's Toastmasters. I when I graduated from college, so in addition to having my Amway business, I started working in a nonprofit arena for the Heart of Virginia Council's Boy Scouts of America, and I was responsible for going out and promoting their character education, career exploration program. And it was called Learning for Life. And so it gave me a lot of practice just going into schools, talking to students, and developing my voice. But I realized that I wanted to improve. So I actually joined a Toastmasters chapter. But I didn't join right away. I joined towards the end of my tenure with the Boy Scouts, because, and how I remember is because when I left the Scouts, I took another position that had me go an hour away outside of Richmond. And so it would have been nearly impossible for me to attend the lunchtime Toastmasters meeting and get back. It would have been impossible. So I had to resign. And I actually became the president of my club, and then I had to resign. So resources like the Toastmasters, as I was building my Amway business, we did a lot of presentations. So developing from there, learning how to ask good questions. Obviously, if you're doing one-to-one presentations, it's a lot different than speaking in front of people. So just having a lot of practice, doing a lot of presentations for the Boy Scouts, going into schools. So a lot of it is practice, but then just reading. There are three books that really helped me to develop this confidence in communicating with people. The first one was Skill with People by Les Giblin. Phenomenal book, very short book, probably the shortest book anybody will ever read, but is extremely impactful because it shared some principles on how to communicate. One of the things that I'll share with everyone that's listening is to remove I from your vocabulary. Now, obviously, it's difficult to remove it because, if you're talking about yourself, then you need to use it, but don't lead with it. And instead, replace it with your. And what happens is that allows for you as a speaker to keep the focus on the listener, which is very important. And that leads to the second book, which is called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Phenomenal, phenomenal book. The biggest lesson I took from there is understanding what other people's interests are and help them get what they want. Right? Help them get what they want. And then another book is called How to Have Confidence and Power When Dealing with People, which is also by Les Giblin. So, those were books that help to, get into my spirit. But I think books in general are important because if you become vastly well read, then there are topics that you can talk about and have a dialogue and conversation and keep the focus off of you, but add to conversations and add value to enrich other people's lives, which is really what, communication is all about. It's not about you, even though you may have a desire to get something, but one of the best ways to get it is to compel people to ask you, right? That's how you know that they want to know. And just got to be prepared to answer when they ask you.
Now, you definitely acknowledge gifts, and like I said, you addressed deficiencies, but you definitely addressed that and worked on it. Let's jump right into the LinkedIn locksmith and building collaborative relationships. When did you start diving in to LinkedIn and really taking full advantage of that platform and really thinking about how beneficial collaborative relationships are? Because I know you really, that's pre your book, but that's something you've always really focused on.
Yeah, LinkedIn reminded me that I've been on the platform for 17 years. So I joined the LinkedIn platform in 2007. It had been around several years prior to that. And I was using LinkedIn as a CRM. So whereas LinkedIn was created to help people find employment, I was using it as a way to cultivate professional relationships. So whenever I would go out into the community representing, the Boy Scouts, or even representing my own business at that time, I would then get a business card, and then I would follow up with people and invite them into my network, because what I realized was that LinkedIn became a CRM, a customer relationship management tool, that allowed me to identify when I connected with the person, what we talked about, and then how could we, share in each other's network. And so I've been doing that since 2007. But in 2012, I was laid off from a nonprofit position. I had since left the Scouts and took on some other roles, but I was laid off. And as I was dealing with the trauma of being let go, I prayed to God that He would deposit in me something that would allow me to live for Him while utilizing my gifts and talents to be a blessing to others. And that's when He blessed me with the name YB Connects, which ultimately became my second business, and allow for me to use my talent and my gift of networking to teach other people how to network effectively. I remember my very first client. She found me, but we went to school together, went to the greatest HBCU in the nation, Virginia Union. And she approached me because she wanted to make a transition in her career and wanted to learn how to leverage LinkedIn to do that. And so when we had the conversation and I told her how much it was for a 1 hour session, she said, okay, we could do that. She hits me back a few days before our session and she says, I'd like to bring my boyfriend with me. I said, no problem. At the end of our 1 hour consultation, Philip, she wrote me a check for $100. I had never been paid $100 in an hour ever in my life up to that point. And I said, hold up, if I can get somebody to give me $100 to give them some knowledge, then I'm going to be rich. I've since raised my prices since then, but I realized that there was a gap in the marketplace that my gift would be able to fill. And so I've just been working to solve that. And so at that time, I was working with job seekers. But in 2016, when I got connected to Eric Thomas, E.T. the Hip Hop Preacher, I came into his community. I shifted to more of revenue generators. So these were business owners, entrepreneurs, authors, consultants, speakers, individuals who wanted to promote their brand in such a way that would generate revenue for them. I began to target those people, and I still do. And as of recently, I had the opportunity to launch a new initiative, which is called the LinkedIn Locksmith Mentorship Community, which allows for me to serve as a mentor to those who have a desire to leverage LinkedIn to accomplish whatever it is that their goal is. And it doesn't require the high level of accountability like a coaching program would have, or one-on-one coaching. So it gives people an opportunity to still be impacted, be a part of an elite or a exclusive community, and for me to give more value, especially in alignment with the Collaboration Creates Currency movement, which is going to impact 100,000 lives this year.
I love it. Let's go right into that. You said collaboration creates currency. How did that come to fruition? What does that mean? What is the ideals and principles behind that phrase?
Yeah, so the catalyst behind Collaboration Creates Currency, the movement, it stems from my impact, the impact that was made on me by Dr. Eric Thomas, E.T. the Hip Hop Preacher. So Eric Thomas is considered the number one motivational speaker in the world. He shares how there were two components that allowed for him to achieve the success that he has today. The first is his relationship with God, or with the Creator, and the second is through collaboration. He often says that he has not done anything by himself. He always had people to work with him and to help him through the process of achieving the success that he has. But he had to overcome adversity, major adversity. This gentleman was born to a teenage mother. His mother was 17 when she had him, where everybody said that she should have had an abortion because having her son would ruin her life. She ended up having him, but she held a secret from him. She never really told him who his real father was. He eventually found out. He became angry, defiant. He left home, which prompted him to become homeless. He ate out of trash cans, lived in abandoned buildings, and eventually dropped out of high school, making him a third generation high school dropout. But it was one connection. He was one connection away from getting on the path to his destiny. And that led to his biggest connection, his biggest collaboration, which was his wife. And at the time, his girlfriend gave him a challenge. She threw out the gauntlet. She said, I'm going to college. I'm heading to Oakwood College at the time, now Oakwood University. And if you go with me, we can keep this thing going. But if you don't, then it's over. Well, obviously, you know what he did, right? He ended up doing what he needed to do. He got his GED, went to Oakwood, and he went from GED to PhD, and now is the #1 motivational speaker in the world. So for me, I saw a way to connect his story to my story, to the story of the other co-authors, and to share with the world how powerful collaboration is as a concept, but also as a strategy for increasing your visibility, your credibility, and your profitability. So that's the foundation of the Collaboration Creates Currency book and the Collaboration Creates Currency movement.
And I'm thinking, I study communication. I'm thinking of social capital theory, meaning like,
Mm-hmm.
we invest in relationships. Financial capital, you invest in money, unbeknownst to you, that money grows like stock. But we should do the same for relationships, right? We invest in our
Mm-hmm.
relationships, unbeknownst to us, our reputation grows and it
Right.
yields opportunities. And I see you nodding your head. What is your thought process about that? Like thinking about like out there in the ethos, you know, your name is being spoken in rooms that you're not in, and then it comes
Right.
back for relationships. And what comes to mind when you think about how you present yourself to the world? Because all those things. So like you're nodding your head. What's your thoughts on that? Like, really curating your relationships, really investing in your relationships, and the
Mm-hmm.
importance of doing so.
So my first influence, I was first influenced with regards to social capital. I first learned of social capital through Dr. Ivan Meisner, who is the founder of BNI, which is Business Network International, the largest referral organization in the world. And he himself had to overcome adversity, which prompted him to discover and build BNI. And his whole focus is on givers gain, and how by focusing on giving, you ultimately you make deposits into a relationship bank. And as you develop those relationships, it leads to know, like, and trust. It leads to opportunities where, because you help people get what they want, Zig Ziglar, right? You help enough people get what they want, then people will then open up the door to get what you want. So when we talk about the whole visibility, credibility, and profitability, it's actually a nod to Dr. Ivan Meisner and the work that he's done with BNI, because I would have never understood this concept of social capital had I not been exposed to BNI. So, understanding that and recognizing that, yes, we must invest in relationships similar to how we should invest in a stock or in a business and our health. And it takes time, but it does grow over time. Think about you and I. You and I, we were able to connect. I believe we connected virtually at first, and then as a result, you began to benefit from some of the services that I offer. You actually became a part of my LinkedIn recommendation challenge, where you begin to thrive and grow. And then we built more of a fraternal, personal relationship, and then took on some other opportunities. And so by creating that outlet, it gave me a chance to connect with people that I can pour into, right? And so I think it's very important that we are intentional about finding ways to invest in people. And that's where the currency piece comes in, right? Because most people, when they think of collaboration creates currency, the first thing that they think about when they hear currency is money, right? Is cash. And that's a part of it. As a matter of fact, that's low-hanging fruit. Money's the easiest thing to get, right? It's the easiest thing to get. You can lose it, get it back again, lose it, get it back. But if you start rising to the next level, right, we're talking about trust. We're talking about reputation. We're talking about, just relationships, ideas, spirit. That's currency. And so when we truly collaborate, we're able to build something that takes a while to grow, but can be lost in an instant. And so that's really the crux of this movement, and really understanding the power of social capital and being able to invest in people. But it starts through collaboration, right? And collaboration is no different than, okay, you open up a bank account, you're now collaborating with the bank. The bank says, we'll give you a certain amount of interest, you put in a certain amount of money. And then here's another secret: If you set up an account that you don't touch and you build that up, you can then go back to the bank and say, I like to take out a loan. Well, they're going to say, well, what asset do you have? Well, I have an account with $10,000 in it. Okay, well, great. You got $10,000 with us in your bank account. We'll loan you $10,000. Why? Because you made investments in that account, which now allows for the bank to say, hey, we find you worthy to be able to, give you more. And that's how we have to look at it.
I love it. One of the things is like day to day, I think it really informs how I live day to day is that treat everyone with kindness, respect,
Mm-hmm.
compassion, because I think that when you hit that main currency of reputations out there, right? And I think that
Mm-hmm.
speaks volumes regardless of money.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you think about that too, in regards to your day to day, work and purpose that you're doing with the collaboration creates currency that informs this, right? And that you're very purposeful about this. You're very passionate about this.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Well, number one, when you become an entrepreneur, you have to figure out a way to make money. Like a business that generates no money is not even a nonprofit, because even a nonprofit makes money.
Yeah.
They just have a different status in terms of taxes, what they can do with the money. Like they can't just delve it out to, the founders of the organization. Like they can't dole it out. They have to use it for the cause of which they've established a nonprofit. But any nonprofit that doesn't make revenue or generate income is out of business. And so, I've had to learn that in order for me to grow my business, I have to be able to collaborate with people. Right? I have to create value in the marketplace so that people could see the value and exchange their financial resources for the value. That's why I love creating community, because people have a desire to be in community for whatever reason. If it's just to grow their brand or just to meet somebody and maybe leverage the network to help them with their cause. So, for example, when I mentioned that I was traveling to the Northern Virginia Black Chambers luncheon, you were one of the first people that I reached out to. Why? One, we have a relationship. Two, you're in the area. Three, you have a desire and a goal to be able to influence potential employers that could work with the students that you're working with, right? So I realized that if I give you a win-win-win situation, the only thing that could stop you from going is either you had a conflict or there was no interest. Well, luckily you were able to make it out, and I'm sure you were able to make some valuable connections, which now it strengthens our relationship. Now, if it was a dud, like if it was a waste of your time, the next time I come calling about something, you'd be like, "YB, I appreciate it, man, but the last time you told me to come out, man, it was a waste of my time." So I have to be very mindful of how I support the people in my network, right? I want to make sure that I have a bridge to cross when it comes to the next idea. Even think about this podcast, right? I have a desire to secure over 100 podcast interviews this year. And the only way I'm going to do that is to leverage relationships, right? I could make cold calls, but sometimes that take a little bit longer.
Mhm.
But to be able to approach someone who has a podcast that I know and say, hey, this is what I'm striving to do. How does this fit in terms of what you're offering? And now we create a win-win situation where other people can be impacted and blessed.
I love it. One of the things too is the lessons learned, obviously trials and tribulations. Where are some places where, like, not say you made a bad investment, but yeah, maybe so, the relationship, or you went into a collaborative relationship and it didn't yield currency. What was some of the lessons you learned? Like obviously failures are not complete failures, they're lessons. So maybe
Mm-hmm.
in your journey of curating this mantra and this philosophy of working with people, what are some things that you've learned along the way about collaborative relationships that do yield currency and ones that necessarily don't?
Yeah, so I'm a recovering people pleaser. And so when I made the transition from people pleasing to being a recovering people pleaser, what the biggest issue I had was believing that what I did for others they would do for me, and I was losing. But it wasn't until I received wise counsel from Eric Thomas and a few other people that I began to shift and change. And so what changed in me was this understanding that I needed to be demanding, right? First of myself and then of others. And so an example of being demanding of others is to be straightforward and direct with what I wanted up front and not wait until the end of the conversation and hope that they would have an interest, but to leverage that direct mindset to ensure that the conversation or the connection was mutual. Because I would, anybody that's taken the DISC assessment, there's the D, the I, the S, and the C. I'm a very high I, meaning I'm very inspirational. I love people. I'm fast paced. Sometimes I don't I didn't at that time pay attention to many details because I was so focused on the feeling, the emotion. But I've got to a place where I've crossed over to be more task driven, more direct, more dominating in terms of me just saying, no, I'm not doing this. This is not what I want. Now, if somebody approaches me, it's a little different, but even in their approach, I'm going to say, well, before I do that, this is what I need. Is that something that is okay with you? And if the person says no, then hey, this is not a good fit, and I'm able to wrap it up. So in having a collaboration, I think what's important is that I'm able to approach people and talk about what they want before I talk about what I want. I know I want to work with the person, but in order for me to work with the person, I have to speak to them in the language of what they want in order for me to win them over. And I learned that from How to Win Friends and Influence People. Right? You talk to people about what they want if you want them to do what you want them to do. But if somebody comes to me and they want me to do something, then they need to do the same thing. And I don't think just because we're connected on social or because we're fraternity brothers or because we may share a similar background, that it's automatic. We still have to approach somebody with value. And those were some of the biggest lessons that I learned, even in the midst of adversity, right? So adversity produces experience. And it is important that we learn from the experience because in life, well, in school, you get the lesson and then you take the test. But in life, you get the test and then you got to learn the lessons. And if you don't learn the lessons, then you got to end up taking that test over and over again. And so I've learned, yeah, I don't find comfort in being a people pleaser. So I think I'm going to shift gears. And so now I'm a recovering people pleaser and I'm a lot more demanding.
Yeah, so you spoke about it, almost like just now, like some of your spidey senses, what's tingling when people are maybe inauthentic or not reciprocal. So what are some of the things, some of the red flags, as you would say, in regards to a collaborative investor when you're like, you know what, I'm not going to put no money in that investment. What are some of your red flags, like kind of like stock where it's a high risk one or whatever. What are some of your red flags?
Yeah, so the first thing, man, is like, and I'll relate it to LinkedIn, right? So when people start out their conversation, talk about I this, right? So you reach out to somebody and say it's like, okay, that's a red flag because what you're saying is like, this message is not about you. So somebody might say, well, how would I start off a conversation if I am the one who's reaching out? Shouldn't I lead with I? No, you shouldn't. You should lead with you. So, for example, if I was sending out a message to you, Philip, and this is our first time meeting, the first thing I would say, obviously, is peace and blessings, right? I started with that, and I say, Philip, thank you for investing your time to read this note. Right? I'm leading with you, and even still, the next sentence would be, the purpose of this message is to X, Y, Z, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So being direct has taught me just get to the point.
Yeah.
Right? Get to the point. Thank the person for investing their time because that's what they're doing. If I want you to read what I want you to read, then you're taking time away from doing what you want to do. So by showing appreciation up front, you at least know that I acknowledge that your time is valuable. That's powerful, man. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I lead with that. Every message I send out, thank you for investing, not spending. Because if you spend something, there's no guarantee you're going to get it back. But if you invest the time, you got a very high percentage of being able to get something in return, even if it's just a quick lesson. So thank you, Philip. Thank you for investing your time to read this note, or thank you for investing this time to speak with me on the phone today. The purpose of my call is, or the purpose of this message is, right? Get to the point, because we have to think like the person who is listening. What are they thinking? Especially if it's a cold connection. They're thinking, what do you want? So you have to tell them. It's kind of like being Charles Xavier from X-Men, right? So it's like you reading their minds. Like you say, okay, yeah, he's probably thinking that. So let me address that right away. The reason why I'm reaching out is X, Y, Z. And so when you keep the focus on them, they'll respond, because they'll realize that, okay, it's not about them. So that's a red flag, number one. Number two is if a person is thirsty.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about like water and drinks and beverages, right? So like there's a difference between being hungry and being thirsty.
And desperate. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, thirsty is you desperate, man. Like you just smell like desperation.
Mhm.
Right. But hungry is like, okay, I'm going to kick my own tail to make it happen. See, me traveling up from Richmond, Virginia to the Northern Virginia Black Chamber, it take me about an hour and change to get up there. That's being hungry. Why? Because I'm on a mission. But what's my mission? To impact 100,000 lives. And so I realized that by targeting chambers of commerce, I'm able to get in front of my ideal targets. So I'm willing to travel anywhere to build that relationship. Why? Because I'm hungry. What my man Les Brown say? Because I'm hungry, right? So I'm hungry. But I'm not willing to compromise my values. I'm not willing to compromise my time. I'm not willing to compromise my integrity. Because if I did, then I'm thirsty.
Mhm.
And so that's a red flag when people are thirsty. That they throw their own mama under the bus to get that thing going on, right? And then last but not least is how they treat other people.
Yeah. That's mine.
So
That's my
that's why I vet people all the time. Vet people.
yeah.
You know, if somebody reach out to me and they say they connected to you, I'm calling you. I'm reaching out, Philip, man.
To
Such
know
and
about
such.
that person. Yeah, I do that.
You
I
know
love
about that
that.
person.
Yeah,
You know
for
what I'm
sure.
saying? We learned that in the frat, not to give too much information, but like somebody roll up and they be like, young brother so and so, like, I don't
I
know.
don't know what chapter
What
you
chapter
crossed.
you from? Hold up,
Yeah.
you from where? Oh, bro, what year was this? Okay, cool, man. Let me reach out to a couple people. You know what I'm saying? If somebody be like, I never heard of this dude, now that's a major red flag. I'm like, you capping on the frat? Like, okay, we got a problem here. Please don't wear no nelly around me. You
Yes.
feel me?
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, but yeah, those would be three red flags, man. And so what I strive to do is make sure I don't commit any flagrant fouls when I'm out in these streets. Right? Even down to using the word TRY, you know what I'm saying? You know the deal with that. You don't put enough into the TRY fund. You learning. But even with people using the word TRY, that's a red flag. Because if you come to me telling me what you TRYing to do, I'm automatically hearing you not doing it. That's all I hear. Like, oh man, I'm TRYing to do it. Like, you ever had somebody tell you, you invite them to your Toastmasters meeting, they gonna say, I'll TRY to make it,
And they don't.
and they
Yeah.
don't show up? That's
Yeah. You're
because
not
they already told you they wasn't coming.
yes.
Because a person who's gonna do something, they're gonna say they're definitive. They're definite. I'll be there. And if they don't, they just lied to you. Now, somebody might say, well, what if they had a situation? Okay, they might have had a situation, but you know what this person didn't do? They didn't call me or text me to let me know they had a situation. So therefore, they lied to me.
They were in no show. Yeah.
There was a no-show. And I know how to fix no-shows, bro. I'll tell you what, I had a woman, let me tell you something. I had a woman, man, she booked an appointment with me 3 different times. One time last year and 2 times within the last month. And every time we got maybe 30 minutes before the meeting, she texts me and say, I got to cancel.
To stop booking.
Oh no, check this out. I told her I hit her on LinkedIn. I was very direct, but I was very calm. Because you can't text certain things because people hear it in their voice. They don't hear it in your voice. So I could have sent the nicest message, but it would have been taken out of context. So I sent her a voice memo and I said, I just want to let you know. I was very calm. I wasn't angry. I I just want to let you know that when I schedule appointments with people, it prevents me from being able to do some other things that may put me in a position to generate income. And so you canceling at the last minute affects my calendar. So what I want you to understand is that in order for you to schedule your next appointment, you're gonna have to invest. You have to pay. Because I was giving her time. I said, now you gotta have to pay.
Pay ahead
And
of time.
she
That makes
was,
sense.
she was and she was apologetic. And she says, I don't do this. It's not my brand. It's not what I do. I said, no problem. I said, but in order for you to schedule another session, you're gonna have to pay. And she said, well, I'm gonna pay for this one that I missed. And then I'm gonna pay for the next one. I said, okay, cool. So I said, before I give her the link to schedule, I sent her an invoice. She paid the invoice.
So you held
And
her accountable. But actually, I'll give her respect that she recognized it, being held accountable in a polite
yeah,
way, and
yeah,
actually that I respect that too. So I might do that, in life. Like you give people an opportunity to show you who they are,
absolutely,
and
absolutely. And so what I might end up doing, man, I might just lead off all my stuff like that. Like, now you got to pay 30 minutes, you got to pay. But I'm being generous, right? So I realize that to be able to collaborate with people is give and receive. It's not give and take, it's give and receive. So when I give somebody 30 minutes of my time, I'm actually investing in that relationship.
yes,
Now, anything over 30 minutes, though, they get the invoice. Like I tell people straight up, like that, and that's my. I'm no longer a people pleaser, right? So the recovering people pleaser in me is like, now you get the invoice. Whereas before, I'm mad because I allowed you to take my time, which is my fault. It's nobody else's fault but mine. But now, if somebody, like I have people now, they want to have a 20-minute conversation, but they want to block off an hour on my calendar. I'm like, where they do that at? I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm
get the
not giving you an
20
hour on my
minutes.
time block. She said, well, the conversation might go over. No, not with me. I'm very good at time management. And so when we reach that 30-minute block, I'm gonna say, hey, so as we're about to land this plane, because I got something else going. Or I'll tell them up front. If I got something back to back, I say, hey, Philip, man, I just want to let you know, man, I look forward to us having this 30-minute conversation. However, I have another call right after this. Why? Because if we getting good and great in the conversation, and I look at the time and we got 1 minute left, I'm gonna say, man, listen, I apologize. I don't mean to cut you off, but I gotta jump on this next call.
I love it. Well, this has been a great, great, great conversation, and I think that we've heard so many gems and jewels that could be applicable to a lot of other conversations. So I kind of said a falsified lie. I said the only part of this show that was structured was my shout outs and plugs. But if you listen to the podcast, you already know that we do a segment called Shot for Shot, where I get to ask you any random question. You get to ask me any random question. I like to get people off guard so they don't get a chance to prepare their question. So do you want to go first or I go first?
I'll go first.
All right.
What does it take to build a relationship with George Mason University from a speaking or author perspective?
So one of the things I would say is understanding the various stakeholders, and you said what they want. And I think particularly presenting that to a variety of audiences and see which one bites. So I've told a lot of employers, if they wanted to get into classrooms or do an engagement, send me their speaker bio or the things that they would talk about. I would disseminate it and say, here is someone that is interested in talking. And then those that bite. But I also try to keep it appropriate and tell people, like, not overpromise, underdeliver. Like, yeah, I'm gonna get you a speaking gig, or yeah, I can do that, because then one, it makes me look bad, and I don't have that agency to get people to talk. So one of the things I say is I can present and connect, and then hopefully the people that are interested. So, Brother Youngblood, if there's something you want to talk about, I definitely send your speaker's bio to all the various stakeholders and allow them to take it from there.
I love it. I love it.
I love it. You already know this question. I think you already know. There's been some controversy about the origin of peace and blessings. And you know this controversy. I want to hear it. Where did this originate? And also, but besides the jokes, that is a great way to introduce yourself and talk. Why do you introduce yourself with peace and blessings? Because when I hear that, it actually makes me feel good. And I think it's a great way to introduce yourself. So I want to hear that, the backstory, how that originated, but why do you introduce yourself as such, and why is that impactful?
Yeah, so let me clear up the controversy. So for those who are listening, obviously you're just getting to know me if you've not heard me before. I'm a graduate of Virginia Union. I was made into what we call the Gamma chapter at Virginia Union University. Gamma in Greek is the third letter in the alphabet, so we were the third chapter made into Alpha, December 30th, 1907. And so the gentleman who was instrumental in my development process, right? Brothers who know what we talk about, they know, right? We call him. He was my dean. His name is Jonathan Webb. Right. So Jonathan and I are classmates. We started at Virginia Union in 1996. We stayed in the same dormitory. And when I made the decision to pursue Alpha Phi Alpha, he was my dean. And so I got word that he was the instrument that allowed for me to begin to say peace and blessings. So I refute that simply because I did not start saying peace and blessings until I left school. So I started school in 96. I didn't finish college until 2004. And I was just having way too much fun. I should have got a degree in social networking, but they don't have that degree, right? But what happened was after I crossed into Alpha in the spring of 2000, I had some situations personally, some things that were going on, and I ended up leaving school in December of 2000, went back home to New York, and I took an 18-month hiatus. And that 18 months hiatus, I was introduced to the Amway business concept. I was introduced to Hezekiah Walker, who's a renowned pastor out of East New York, Brooklyn. And then I was also had to also overcome tremendous adversity in that 18 months. I experienced 9/11. I literally walked so much that I had holes in my shoes. I was walking in the highway, got picked up by the police. I wasn't arrested, but they put me in the back of the car because like, man, you can't walk in the highway. So when I pulled up to the house, so I say all that to say all of these experiences and adversity and being educated on just the power of praise and the power of the spoken word led me to get to a place where I transformed how I communicated. Like I realized how powerful words were. Then I realized that if I wanted peace and blessings, I had to give out peace and blessings, right? And so I realized that when you speak, when anytime you speak, those are seeds. Words are seeds, right? It's like having an apple seed, right? The apple seed, you plant it in the ground, it doesn't produce apples right away. As a matter of fact, it starts to develop the roots, and then you get the stem starts to grow, then it turns into a plant, and then that plant turns into a tree, and then that tree starts to produce apples. And that's the same thing with the mindset that we have and having that power of the spoken word. So when I came back to college in 2002, John Webb was already gone. He had graduated in 2000. He was gone. I wasn't speaking peace and blessings before I left. But when I came back, every time I met somebody, it was peace and blessings. As a matter of fact, I said peace and blessings so much, brothers and sisters on campus didn't even know my real name. They was like, that's the peace and blessings dude. So no different than me being the LinkedIn locksmith. Before I was even the LinkedIn locksmith, I was the peace and blessings dude, right? And so, you could verify that with the brothers and sisters that was on the yard at that time. Every time, I was always dressed to the nines. I was always dressed up on campus for my freshman year. I would dress up so much, people thought I was going to a funeral. I was like, no, I'm not going to a funeral. I'm dressing for my future, right? But when I came back with the mindset, I was on some Malcolm Martin Farrakhan type stuff, man. I was on that. And so while my good brother Webb may want to take the shine, and I will be honest with you. I'll let him think that he was instrumental in that, but the true influence was the Heavenly Father, right? Because he helped me to transform how I looked at situations, and I realized that I was actually more in control of my actions and my attitude through the words that I speak, so that I can get the things that I want. And it actually went to a whole nother level when I graduated, and I was introduced to some other concepts that now multiplied the ability to use the power of the spoken word. So So yeah, man, brother Webb he could take credit if he want to, but at the end of the day, the father gets all the credit for that.
I love it, and I love that you say it. And regardless of that, we all love each other, and also I think just saying that and speaking that out, regardless of who got that, just receiving it on both ends is a blessing.
Yeah,
I love
absolutely.
hearing it. I know when you get on the phone with me or I meet someone, and that I knew I'm gonna have a good conversation like we did today. So I
Oh
love
yeah.
that. It sets a tone for the conversation we're about to have.
Absolutely, and that's actually a strategy, right? So, if I want to win over somebody, like I deal with a lot of people that's skeptical. When you operate in sales and marketing, you deal with a lot of skeptical people, and what you have to realize is that just because they're skeptical, don't mean you got to come off your routine.
Mhm.
So I realized the power of the spoken word, because what will happen is that word seed will get into their mind, and now that starts to grow in their brain, just like negative will grow in mine if I allow myself to say anything negative. So I appreciate you acknowledging that.
Now, this is the part of the show called shout outs and plugs. Show love to anyone that you want to show love to, and then plugs. This is how the listeners can engage with you, follow up with you, support you, all the like. I'll make sure to try to put that in the show notes. So, stage is set, shout outs and plugs.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me start with the plug. So I want to invite those who are entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, speakers who want to leverage LinkedIn. I encourage you to learn more about the LinkedIn Locksmith Mentorship Community. You can find out more about that by visiting my website, ybconnects.com. Once you come there, it'll be right there, right in front of you. Once you land on the website, you can learn more and enroll. We want to invite you to come in. I am offering one complimentary week in the community, but there is a monthly membership and an annual membership. So we definitely want to invite you to learn more about that. The second plug I want to put out there is the Collaboration Creates Currency movement, which is based on my book. And so I'm inviting individuals to become a part of that movement by ordering their copy of the book or by becoming a sponsor. And you can learn more about that by visiting collaborationcreatescurrency.com and get more information about that. I would say in terms of shout outs, I want to give a shout out to Marshall Fox, Deborah Delgado, Sherrod Ledet, and S. Elliott Brooks III are all of my co-authors that are in the book, whose stories are phenomenal. They share how collaboration created currency for them, put them in the position that they are today. I think all of the stories are powerful, but I value Marshall Fox's story because we lived it together. And the fact that he went from being a struggling insurance salesman to now being able to work with 6 and 7 and 8 figure speakers and podcast hosts with his gift of being a graphic designer is tremendous. And so all of that happened as a result of collaboration. And he's a major testament of how collaboration creates currency. So want to give those four a shout out. And then I also want to give you a shout out for just continuing to be consistent in your desire to impact not only our brothers through the Toastmasters and helping them to develop their communication and leadership skills, but in your hunger and desire to impact the next generation through the work you do on a day-to-day basis, man. And you're an awesome man, you're an awesome husband, awesome father, and I'm just grateful that your heart is set to serve. And as a result, you're going to be commanding tremendous blessings. So thank you so much for the opportunity to be here with you today.
I take it and I accept those blessings and I return those blessings back to you tenfold. Well, Positive Filter listeners, this has been a great episode. Thank you so much for your time listening. Please support YB and all the efforts he's doing. As I said earlier, I'll put all the resources in the show notes so you can connect with him directly. I'll also put his LinkedIn URL. Just connect with him as a great person on that network, LinkedIn. As you know, every episode is dedicated to the late memory of my late father-in-law, Jeff Kirsch. So please consider donating to the Jeff Kirsch Anti-Hunger Fund. Additionally, from now on, I also want to encourage kindness at George Mason. So if you're affiliated with George Mason in any way, please consider submitting a Pats for Patriots in which the recipient will receive an e-card for their kindness on George Mason. If you're listening to this podcast, please give it a like, subscribe, review, elevate the podcast in any way, share it. That's a great way to elevate the voices of all our guests. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much for your time. Thank you for listening to Positive Filter, a podcast that focuses on family, friends,
career with a little self-help along the way. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your family and friends, and like the Facebook page, Spreading Positivity of Movement. Thanks for listening.